Have you ever felt left out? Like you were on the outside looking in? You desperately want to be a part of a group, to connect, but you feel like something stands between you and them. It's not for a lack of trying, or even that they don't want you around. You hang out with them, you laugh, joke around, but you can't shake this feeling deep down that there's something fundamentally different about you, that you don't quite fit in. How do you interpret that? Do you blame yourself? Maybe you isolate and try to figure out what is wrong with you. It is internalized. It becomes a part of your identity that you are broken or useless. Identity is important. It's what makes us, us. The core of who we are. When we are faced with challenges or tough decisions, we use those core beliefs, our identity, to inform us on what is the right decision. What happens though when someone's identity is non-existent though? How do you form an identity or any kind of beliefs when you have memories that don't even feel like your own, or when it's constantly reinforced that you're nobody? What happens when you discover that you're less than even that you're just a puppet, a husk somehow brought to life whose only purpose is to obey orders? That is the crux of Xion. Xion is someone who has built up an identity in the midst of nothing, only to have that broken down with the revelations of being a replica. She struggles to find herself in the midst of all the confusion, simply wanting to solidify her identity when everything is working against her. Welcome to the psychology of Xion. Xion was never supposed to exist. An imaginary number I. Her primary function was to collect hearts, siphoning off Sora's memories from Roxas and eventually replacing him. This is constantly reinforced as well. Most of her positive reinforcement is through how good of a job she does. When she does her job, which is collecting hearts, she's not berated by Cyax, and Roxas and Axel are happy. Often after a job well done, Roxas and Axel would go up for the icing on the cake, sea salt ice cream in an unbeatable view. And the very first time she unwields a Keyblade, Roxas invites her to that, literally connecting friendship with her ability to do her job. When things are good, they meet with each other, laughing and having a good time. When she loses the ability to use her Keyblade, the mood darkens. Both of these reinforce that core part of her identity that says she needs to be useful. She needs to collect hearts because if she can't do that, then what good is she? Cyax at first treats her neutrally. Well, neutrally compared to how he treats everyone else. He is naturally strict and cold to the other organization members as he gives out the missions. So it doesn't really register as anything out of the ordinary when he talks to her the same way. That strictness isn't just for show though. If they do not carry out their missions appropriately, there is the looming threat that they will be turned into dusks. It's a thing that is constantly reinforced throughout days. So all of the organization members do their duties as they're told. When Xion starts to struggle though, Cyax turns on her. Every comment is a sharpened dagger that plunges into her. Some good examples are when Cyax constantly refers to her as a useless puppet, that she was a mistake that he never should have made, or how he refuses to even address her normally, calling her an it. Xion's only sense of self at this point is built upon her role of collecting hearts, so every comment from Cyax tears away at that identity. And Cyax knows that. He has his own problems, and is focusing his anger on her out of spite. Maybe we'll talk about that one day. But it isn't just Cyax. The way that Xion is talked to is an organization-wide problem. Xigbar cheekily calls her Poppet, which of course is a sly way of reinforcing her role of being a puppet. Even Xemnas, who hardly even acknowledges her presence in Days, degrades her in Kingdom Hearts 3, calling her it and a true nobody, reinforcing that she is lower than a nobody, that her rightful place is in oblivion, a forgotten pawn once her usefulness has run out. She doesn't respond here because really she's not quite back yet, but it still is insane that Xemnas talks like this right in front of her. The complete disregard and callousness you have to talk about how useless you think someone is, let alone to do that when they're right beside you and can hear every word, is so malicious. So yeah, it's pretty safe to say that the environment that Xion lives in and the kind of messages she receives constantly are not the best. When Xion loses her Keyblade, it solidifies all the things Cyax and the others have said about her. She even writes about it in her journal, stating that it's terrible and the organization will have no use for her. She is useless, a mistake, a broken puppet. And if that was it, her story would have ended here, decommissioned and thrown away probably. But Axel and Roxas changed that fate. Their connection changed her identity. Xion initially has her face covered, and throughout days, her face changes depending on who is looking at her and who their heart has memories of. What's interesting is that it typically is a one-to-one copy. People see Naminé, Sora, even Ventus. When Roxas connects with her though, he sees someone completely unique. Yes, technically it is Kairi with her hair flipped and darkened, but it is important to note that it's not a one-to-one copy, and symbolizes how Roxas helped her create a distinct identity. One that is outside of putting on the face of others, or simply being a puppet for the organization. It's not just another mask or role. Roxas initially talks with Xion while they do their missions. Despite her not really responding, he puts in effort. He treats her as more than just a puppet or a tool. This simple act is a unique connection for her, and is the basis for a new identity that starts to form. When she wields the Keyblade for the first time, Roxas takes her for the icing on the cake, and tells her about the friendship he has with Axel. This sparks a question in her mind. She wonders, can she ever have friends? She continues to eat ice cream with Roxas, slowly forming a bond, forming an interest outside of the duties that were given to her, and exploring what it means to have a friend. When Roxas is unconscious, she brings some seashells from the Destiny Islands, a place she has been feeling called to ever since she first came upon it. She spends a lot of time thinking about the ocean's waves there, and how familiar the ocean and Roxas feel to her. It's like the memories that Axel has mentioned nobody started to remember. Xion keeps Roxas company while he's asleep, keeping the connection alive by sharing her experiences. It's a neat little parallel to when Roxas first talked to Xion. Roxas was trying to connect with Xion, and even despite her not really responding, he still would share things. And so now Xion has that same experience. It is clear that this connection has become an important part of Xion's identity. And so, two identities start to form, one centered on collecting hearts, while the other centers on the friends that she cares for. These don't necessarily oppose each other right now, but eventually they would. It's also decoupling that friendship aspect from her work, because before, she would reinforce her work based on the positive interactions she got from her friends. But now that starts to separate, and when she loses the Keyblade, it further solidifies that divide. The Keyblade was an extension of herself, and without that piece, she loses who she is. The best example is when Riku comments on her Keyblade and how it is a sham. You can see her confidence crumbling. His comment is taken personally. When the legitimacy of her weapon is questioned, her sense of self is questioned. Usually, it isn't until our world is shaken that we start looking at making changes. And that's not a bad thing. If we aren't registering that something is a problem, say like getting value and a sense of self from your work, there isn't really an indicator that there is a change to be made. Especially in the case of Xion, she is not aware of healthy boundaries, or even what a healthy life looks like. So if she is told you are doing well when she furthers the organization's goals, then of course she's going to throw herself into that. Add on the positive reinforcement from Roxas and Cyrix when she is doing a good job, and it makes sense why this became a focus point for her. I know I keep reiterating her identity and where she is at mentally, and it probably is abundantly clear at this point, but I just need to stress how much of Xion is wrapped up in her Keyblade and collecting hearts, because it is something that she struggles with right up until the end of days. Roxas and Axel challenge that for sure and offer an alternative, but I think it highlights core beliefs so well because they're hard to shake. We can be shown evidence of the contrary to some of our toxic beliefs, but it's incredibly tough to shift those beliefs and can take a really long time. But Roxas and Axel give her such good evidence against that. They don't care about her ability to perform or what she brings to the table. They love the time that is spent together. They like to laugh together and eat ice cream, which sounds so simple, I know. But that time to just be yourself, to be in a state where you feel safe and vulnerable, is such a rare thing to have that it doesn't really matter what they do, just that they are connecting through it. So even though Xion was confident in herself and she was doing well in her work and she was connecting with her friends, when Xion loses her Keyblade, it is a gut punch to her self-esteem and to her identity. She pulls back from Roxas and Axel. She is depressed. She is confused. Roxas steps in to help. He sacrifices his own Keyblade in order to help Xion. He gives up what Xion sees as such a vital part of one's identity, their ability to collect hearts, in order to help her. This will stay with Xion for a very long time, and is an incredible parallel to what she does at the end of days. So throughout this, it's very apparent that Xion is still reliant on something outside of herself to shape her identity. But having those friends see her and encourage her and help her challenges her previous beliefs, and I think that's a step forward. Their connection and willingness to help Xion eventually leads her back to wielding the Keyblade, but her identity and motivation is more focused on her friends now rather than on collecting hearts. The two identities that Xion struggles between really never gets resolved until the end of the story. And even then, you could point to her journal entries where she's confused and still doesn't know what she wants at the end of days. In our stories, we like things to be told in absolutes. We want to see an antagonist go through a personal journey and become good. We want to see a definitive shift in someone's character to indicate that they have changed, when the reality is that doesn't typically happen after one experience. Xion continues to flip-flop between her friends and her duty to collect hearts in the beginning, slowly shifting her beliefs to the better, which is good, but it's an ongoing thing that keeps happening and keeps needing to be reinforced. And I wish that was all she had to struggle with. As she struggles between those two identities, Xion starts to question many things, like the organization's focus on collecting hearts. This question plagues Xion, causing her to wonder what she is even doing here in the first place. As she questions and struggles with her purpose, she begins to internalize something new. She begins to believe that she is different from Roxas, someone that she would constantly compare herself and relate to. This comes straight from her journal on day 151, titled These Dreams. I wasn't ready to see Roxas again. I can't help but compare us. We both use the Keyblade, but we're so different. Does he dream? It seems like that's all I do anymore. Last night I jumped into the ocean. I was drowning. She tries to hide this overwhelmed side of herself, putting up a mask to shield those feelings from her friends. It's a common defense mechanism that many of us use, but I'll talk about that later. This confusion and feeling lost comes to a head when she takes her first step into Castle Oblivion. She takes the first step towards confronting who she truly is. And this is where things start to get messy. Axel appears before Xion, trying to protect her, to keep her from remembering who she really is. But Xion pushes forward. She's been confused and felt so lost that she needs to know who she is, and so she pushes back against Axel. When she finally learns the truth, it breaks her. If you thought the struggle was difficult between collecting hearts and being with her friends, this is on a completely different level. While before, those two things could coexist, and she was working to solidify both, she realizes she isn't who she believed herself to be at all. She isn't a friend, she isn't a collector of hearts. She really is just a puppet, made to replace Roxas. So if she still wants to do her job, she's hurting Roxas. If she stops to save her friends, she'll be destroyed. She begins to unravel, feeling the memories from Sora flowing through her, muddying who she sees herself as. When we are broken down, when all we are left with are the pieces of who we thought we were, that's when we truly find what lies at the center. She questions if she is even supposed to exist, as she begins to understand that she comes from Sora. So now it becomes this decision of returning with Roxas and Axel, or bringing Sora back. It is so interesting how in this moment here, her hood is up. In her confusion, she retreats, isolating her heart from her friends. When Roxas finally finds Xion, she apologizes. Her heart is heavy. At this point, she is grappling with her identity, but also with what she must do. She turns her weapon on Roxas and Axel, which probably was the hardest thing for her to do. She has two opposing sides, maybe more. One side wants to be with her friends, to keep laughing and eating ice cream. And the other, where she wants to help her friends, which essentially helps Sora return. She knows as she begins to understand her origins that she can't stay with her friends. There's this moment where Axel confronts her and says something incredibly hurtful.
Well, what do you think, Xion?
I'm not sure.
Not sure, huh? Is that because you're a puppet? You do know that. You're a replica, whose original purpose was to copy Roxas's powers.
Axel doesn't actually believe she is a puppet, but he makes this statement to remind her of the danger that she poses to Roxas. You can see from her reaction that it hits home too, that she has a visceral reaction to being called that. She begins to understand that the more that she stays around Roxas, the weaker he is becoming. It's this terrible understanding that the more that she stays close to her friends, the more that she opens them up to harm. While trying to find her way, she runs into Riku, who helps her understand more of Sora's impact on her. She antagonizes Riku a bit here, asking if he hates her for taking Sora away from him. This is the second time Xion has quipped at Riku, and both times seem to be a defensive reaction to feeling attacked or guilty. It's this mask that she puts up to defend herself, It's almost shocking to see this cold side of Xion, but it makes sense when you understand that she is protecting herself, right? She's lashing out in order to keep herself safe. But when he replies, it breaks through that mask. She apologizes. It's just so messy, and I think Xion begins to grasp that here. Riku is doing what he can to save those he cares about, and Xion gets that. It's why she can't go with him yet. Because she needs her friends, and they need her. Riku gives her a chance to choose what is the right answer. In the face of that choice, Xion again questions where she truly belongs. It's that constant confusion, not knowing where she stands or who she is. She doesn't know if she can pick the right answer, and Riku tells her that she has to pick an answer that is best for everyone. Riku treats her like a person. He doesn't just call her a puppet or see her as a means to an end. He treats her like a human who has a very difficult choice to make about her life. And honestly, it's so pivotal for Xion. I know I've stressed numerous instances that are formative for Xion, but they all really are. It's these continuous next steps in Xion learning about her autonomy and about who she is. This choice isn't one anyone else can help her with. She can't fight it off with her Keyblade. She can't rely on her friends. She has to choose for herself. And Riku gives her that space despite the consequences it could have for Sora. And I think that is so important for Xion. It again starts to decouple her identity from a thing or from other people and puts the focus on herself. And finally, she has her answer. There's this moment when they're all together one last time, where Xion comments on how beautiful the sunset is. She is serene, calm in the choice that she has made, or so it seems here. In her journal entry titled What I Must Do, she says, Riku gave me this time. Axel told me to spend it thinking for myself. The organization is determined to erase either me or Roxas. They'll never allow us to coexist. I love Roxas and Axel. I'm sure Cyax would scoff at that. Call it a trick of my artificial memories, but the time I spent on that clock tower was real. I wish the three of us could stay together, just like this, forever. But I have to end this. I'll never forget today's sunset. Even if Roxas and Axel do, I won't forget. She knows there isn't a way to run away or keep things the same. She makes the comment that as long as they keep each other in their thoughts, they will never be apart. She will have these memories memorized for a long time, forever. And she wishes those memories are real, as she questions literally everything about herself at this point. In her journal entry titled Where I Belong, she says, I wanted to see Roxas one more time, but couldn't. What would I say? Did I ever really exist? Even if not, I just hope that those times we spent watching the sunset were real. I know Naminé will tell me how to get back where I belong. I should hurry to see her. Even as her identity completely unravels, at her core, she knows what she needs to do. She has made her decision and she begs Axel to understand. She knows that if she stays around the others any longer, that everything will fall apart, and so she seeks Naminé. As she solidifies her understanding of herself, she knows that she needs to return to Sora, even if that means disappearing forever. But despite that, she's ready. See, Xion made this sacrifice for her friends, because she loves them. She's not doing it for them, but because of her love for them, if that makes sense. When we know ourselves, when we understand who we are and what we value, it helps us make the hardest of decisions with the strongest of conviction. Xion knows that it is for the good of everyone, that the right answer is to return to Sora. Masks are an interesting concept. They are how we want people to see us. Sometimes they are helpful. Other times they're used to keep us safe. But the important thing to realize is that it's common. Not everyone feels comfortable showing their vulnerable side, and so they will cover that as a way to protect themselves. It can definitely be used manipulatively, don't get me wrong. But at its core, it is usually used to protect, either consciously or unconsciously. You can see the mask come up often for Xion, like when she didn't want to upset Roxas, so she tried to smile instead of being sad. Or when she physically pulled her hood up and hid her face when she was grappling with the truth of her origins. Sometimes it is just a reaction, trying to make sure she doesn't accidentally hurt her friends' feelings. Other times, she uses it in order to save her friends. Even though she knows it will hurt them, she does it because it will help them. And she puts on the hardest mask of all at the end of days.
Memories into me. given me so much that I feel like I'm about to overflow. Look at me, Roxas. Who do you see? If you see somebody else's face, a boy's face, then that means I'm almost ready. This puppet will have to play her part. Roxas, this is him. It's Sora. You're next, Roxas. I have to make you a part of me too. Don't you see? This is why I was created.
She plays the role of the puppet for Roxas, pushing him to fight because she knows he can never willingly destroy her. And so she dons a mask, pretending to try and absorb Roxas. It was her choice to leave, but it was by no means an easy choice. She doesn't want to disappear. She wants to be with Roxas and Axel forever. She just knows that Sora returning was the right choice overall for everyone. She is so happy to have met Roxas and Axel. They are her best friends, and even as the connection disappears, Roxas clings onto those memories. Despite everything, there is that thin sliver of memory that lives on, because Xion wasn't just a puppet. She was real. Part of me wonders what Xion thought would happen after she was defeated by Roxas. She desperately hoped that she would live on in people's memories, but Naminé was clear that even that wouldn't linger. But she prayed that they would not completely be gone. And against all odds, she was right. Despite the organization bringing her back, using her as one of their 13, the memories that Sora harbored in his heart connected back with her. A light in that darkness that reminded her of who she was, and was a beacon for her to return. She reclaims her identity in a physical way too, alongside Roxas and Axel. I absolutely love this cutscene. Identity is important to Xion. I think I've made that point very clear now. It was a way of fighting back against the dehumanization that Xemnas inflicted upon her. A way of solidifying her identity, transforming it from one bound by Xemnas and her creation, and forging a new one alongside her most closest friends. Despite her sacrifice, despite her acceptance of being cast into oblivion, she gets a second chance, and the relief that she feels is palpable. She stands there, tears streaming down her face, unable to believe it. Finally, she can truly be vulnerable before her two best friends. She can let that mask loosen with relief. The relief of returning, the relief of finally seeing her friends again, the relief of finally having the chance at a true life. Xion is such a wonderfully complex character, and I really hope I did her justice in this video. It was hard to really convey how confusing and split Xion was all the way up until the end, but I really wanted it to feel a little messy, because that's how real life is when we're trying to figure ourselves out. I also think masking is such an important topic, and I'm glad I was able to bring that up in this video. Often it can feel like we have to have this perfect image of ourselves and have it all together, when the reality is that finding ourselves and learning about ourselves takes time. And sometimes it can be really messy, but that's okay. When we live out our lives as genuinely as possible, we can be true to ourselves and not have regrets. And I hope Xion's story in this video helped you to see that a little bit more clearly. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end, comment identity or mask, or fit it in some way into your comment. I think both define this video really well. If you can, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed or shared this video. If you want to go the extra mile, I have a Patreon and channel memberships. You can support me for as little as $1 a month. That money helps me to hire editors and artists for the channel, as well as upgrade my equipment or keep the lights on. Which, surprise, I am now a homeowner. I just closed on a house around the time that this video is going out, which is crazy. So every little bit helps, but please don't put yourself in a bad position if you're unable to do so. If you found this video insightful or helpful, I've made other videos on Kingdom Hearts and plan to make some on Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I swear they're coming out soon. I am slowly working on a script in the background. It's just that, Kingdom Hearts is the main piece of this channel, and so it takes priority. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.